Are you ready to navigate the new way to work? Forbes Books presents Dare to Care in the Workplace with Kathleen Quinn Botaw. Here's Kathleen.
Hello, everyone. I am here today with Lou Adler, and he has not one, not two, but 1.4 million followers on LinkedIn. And what he doesn't know is I've been following him since I was a young woman in my 20s and reading all of his wonderful information about recruiting and learning from him for years. So I am so honored, sir, to have you on my podcast.
Well, thank you very much. That's quite humbling. But of course, when you were a young woman, so I've been in this business for close to 45 years. So I had to be a middle-aged man at the time.
Well, age is a state of mind, right? So we're just going to keep moving, right?
Sounds like a plan, right?
So one of the things I love about your writings and all of your performance-based hiring systems is it's really about a mindset, right? So the employees have to have a mindset, the employers have to have a mindset. Can we start there, and can you talk to me a little bit about, this mindset of the employee first? Should I stay or should I go? Which is also a really good song. Should I stay or should I go now?
Yeah, I know. Well, actually, I was talking to my son and I said, I got this article I want to write about making a career decision. I said, why don't you use the title of this musical song? I had never heard of it. So he said, go with it. And actually, that turned out to be interesting. I think the mindset, and I saw this last week. I had a book club session last week, a Hire With Your Head book club session last week. And 2 days before the book club, I was reading Time magazine, and it was a graphic image of point of view. And the actual object was a cylinder. But when you looked at it, the shadow of it from one side on the wall, it was a square. When you looked at it as a shadow from the center, it was a circle. And it said, the point of view is everything. And when I started, and I just saw that like 2 days before I was doing this book club, which was a week ago. And I realized that most disagreements have to do with point of view.
Yes.
So my point of view, and I said this at the beginning of this book club, I said, my point of view is I'm going after top 25% people, candidates. My client is going to pay a fee for those people. They're only going to see 3 or 4. And all 3 or 4 that I send, they're going to interview. And one of them is going to get the job. Mm-hmm. Most people have a different point of view. Most people are trying to fill jobs quickly. I said, but if your point of view is you want to only hire the top 25%, and if my point of view for the candidate is, when I talk to candidates with that point of view, is this job will be a career move. A year from now, you'll still be excited about it. So what I'd like to do is engage in a conversation with you to see if it's a career move. And that's the should you go or should you quit decision. There's a lot of variables other than compensation. Mm-hmm. So the point of view is, hey, we're going to get the candidate a great job. We're going to give the company a great hire. It's going to raise the talent bar, but it's a different process. Everybody else's point of view is, hey, we got to do this quickly and efficiently with someone who's skills qualified, and we'll offer them an ill-defined lateral transfer. So I don't know if that's actually your question, but that was kind of where I'm going here.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And, employees and candidates are in the driver's seat now with 10.5 million open jobs and 5.7 million people who want to actually go to work. So that top 25% is more important than ever to focus on. And what I really liked about what you just said is your confidence in recruiting. It is, my client will see 3 people. My client will interview all 3 that I put in front of them, and they will make a hiring decision. Where did that confidence come from?
Well, I probably faked it for the first 5 years. But I also made the statement, my background is manufacturing and engineering and finance and accounting and systems. I mean, I was in industry for 10 years before I became a recruiter. So when I took my first search assignment, the hiring manager, and I was running a company when I quit. I didn't have to quit, and I was offered other jobs. I said, no, I don't want to work for that group president. So it was really a clash of me and another person. But when I became a recruiter, and I saw this job description listing skills, experiences, and competencies and academic background, I told the president of the company, I said, this is not a job description. This is a person description. What do you want the person to do? And he said, and this is in 1978 when I became a recruiter, he said, turn around the plant. I said, fine, let's walk through the plant and we'll see what needs to be done. So I really understood the work. So we spent an hour in the plant. I understood exactly what was going on, and I found a candidate who had done comparable work.
Mm-hmm.
So by knowing the job and what you're looking for, you can assess a candidate based on, hey, can you do this work? If you can't do this work and not motivated to do it, you're not going to get the job. And if hiring manager, so once I had the evidence, hey, this person's turned around plants like this, not identical, but they've done similar stuff here and there. And I've been involved in 700, 800, maybe 1,000 different search assignments. Never used a job description listing skills or experience. I always say, what does the work need to be done? So that's basically how I got the confidence of being able to assess candidates, and that works. So after 5 or 10 years, it actually works. At first, I didn't think it would work. I just thought it would work. But now when I went to a client, I said, if you want us to give you a year guarantee, and I gave a year guarantee when I was a contingency recruiter before I became a retained recruiter. I said, if you don't want to use my process, I'll give you a 90-day guarantee. If you use my process, I'll give you a year. So that was okay.
So smart.
So that was really the difference. I said, and quite frankly, I probably don't want to do it if you don't want to use my process. So I had enough confidence, and just that confidence, okay, we'll give it to you. And I said, well, let me just walk you through the job description and see if you like it. So once I started taking assignments, and say, hey, tell me about the work. What do you need done? What does success look like? My clients realized I knew more about the job than they did. So that I said, so you're going to see my candidates. I said, maybe the first one I'll show you is a test case to make sure we're in the market, but you'll see 3 more and you'll hire one. I would have to say over the years, 80 to 90% of the 700, 800 search assignments, that's what happened. Never presented more than 3 or 4. And I would say of those, now I had another firm I had with other people. So I'd say over a 10-year period, we made over 1,000 placements. Less than 7% didn't make the full year. That either were fired or left on their own. Less than 7%. And 2/3 of those were because, or maybe half of those, they didn't get along with the hiring manager. It was a clash with the hiring manager and the job. It was rarely technical incompetence. It was all the behavioral stuff, not motivated, didn't like the job, it was poorly defined. Whatever it was not technical ability. It was all the things related to context of the job and the relationships with the people.
Yeah, that means 93% success rate, which is an A in most people's book.
Yeah, well, I did it, and it was interesting. It was a selfish decision. I didn't want to do the search over again or give the money back. So I spent more time making sure it was right. That was actually a learning experience. Oh, I can't believe I actually did this. One client talked me into it, and then I was really afraid. He said, you got to do it. You'll never give. But that's where I really learned how to interview correctly, because I was interviewing for the long term, not for the start date.
Right, which is that goes back to what's your point of view when you're entering into hiring. So let's focus on the hiring managers for a minute. And can you talk a little bit about the difference between selection and hiring? Purposefully selecting someone to join your company, your culture, because their attitudes, their beliefs, their ability, or the technical ability to get the work done, versus just hiring in crisis.
So that goes to the point of view. I think too many people hire for the start date. They define a job, and basically they're saying, hey, would you like to take an ill-defined lateral transfer? Doing exactly what you've done, but we're not going to tell you it's exactly, but if you've done similar work with those skills, we'll hire you. And we're not going to actually tell you what the work is until you start, but we'll pay you a lot more money. That's hiring for the start date as opposed to hiring for the full year, which I call win-win hiring. I hire for win-win, which is, hey, after a year, the candidate says, I'm glad I took this job and I'm glad I'm here. And the hiring manager says, I'm so glad I hired you and I hope you stay. Or the company decide, hey, this person's so good, we're going to push him and help him grow and develop. So in my mind, if you hire for the start date, which you might be called selection or under crisis, I hire for the first year anniversary date, which is a different process. It's not transactional. It's much more consultative. Our interview is what I would call a career gap. Hey, does this job really represent a career move? Are you going to see stretch and growth? And is it going to be a more satisfying job to you? That's that rubric I sent, that graphic, which is should I go or should I stay? Right. Which factors in, hey, here are the factors that drive on the job success. If you're not getting them, you should leave. But don't leave unless you're going to really get a dramatic improvement. Don't just go for avoiding pain. Go for the long-term reasons.
Which leads me to your famous hiring formula for win-win hiring success. Can you tell everybody about that?
Yeah, this took a long time to figure out, but it's pretty simple. It basically says the ability to do the work in relationship to fit drives motivation, and because motivation is so important, it's squared equals results. So it's ability in relationship to fit drives motivation, which is squared equals results. And it turns out ability is a combination of hard skills, technical ability, and soft skills. Influencing people, managing projects, being reliable. Fit, though, turns out to be the driver, because you can be competent to do the work, but if the fit isn't there, you're not going to be motivated. On the other hand, if you like the job, like the team, like the people, then all of a sudden you're going to be highly motivated. So most people, and I would say most managers focus on just the technical competency and some interpersonal skills, and they make some judgment. I focus on not only technical competency, but also the types of teams a person's been on, also the projects and scale, how they influence people. So I understand competency pretty well. And I spend a lot of time trying to figure that out, but I spend as much time on the fit factors. Fit with the job. Is this candidate intrinsically motivated to do that work, which I've defined early? Is this candidate going to fit the pace and intensity and the culture of the company? Is this candidate and the hiring manager going to be able to work effectively together? And does this candidate see this job as a long-term growth move? If all of those components are there, the person will be highly motivated. So this is what I said when over the years, people don't fail because of technical competency. They sometimes fail because of the team skills or the interpersonal skills, but most of the times they fail because the fit factors aren't there. And the biggest one is they don't get along with the manager. I actually loved the job I had. I would not become a recruiter if it wasn't for the group president. Just didn't, he came down every other week and I didn't like him and he didn't like me. I didn't want to listen to him and he wanted to do it his way. On the other hand, I was only 31 running a company with 300 people. So I was probably a little bit cocky then and over my head, but I didn't care. I said, fire me if you don't think, but I was doing what I said. They might not have done it the way he wanted, but I was doing it and it worked. And other people in the company gave me other jobs and I didn't want to relocate and didn't want to do it. But so I just quit and became a recruiter. And then I realized, hey, that's actually not a bad decision. And I realized recruiting was screwed up. It wasn't a business process. It was random results trying hopefully for the best. So
Do you think recruiting has gotten a lot better?
Nope, hasn't changed at all.
What is the state of recruiting from your perspective?
Well, you said it right there at the beginning. You said we got 10 million jobs and 10 million people looking and we can't mix and match them because we're focusing on hiring for the start date, not hiring for the long term. And that's the point of view again. In my mind, a job, now some people just want gig work. Hey, I just want to do the same work and maybe get slightly better, 5 or 10% better every year. And I don't even know they're offering that. But there's another group of people who don't want it, who actually like working. They want to find a situation where they can thrive and grow. But that's not a transactional decision. That takes time to figure out. So my focus is I'll spend more time with fewer people to increase a win-win hiring outcome. But if you're just hiring for the start date, it's transactional. Do you have the skills? Are you ready to move? Can you take this amount of money? We'll pay you 5% more, and then you accept the job.
Right.
But there's a reason why engagement in the U.S. workforce, according to Gallup, has only been 1/3 approximately for the last 30 years. Right. 1/3 fully engaged, 1/3 fully unengaged, and 1/3 who cares. Some days they're engaged and sometimes they're not. And it's because the career decision is treated too casually. And the hiring decision is treated too casually on both sides of the desk. And if you've been a retained recruiter, you can't, you give a year guarantee. You got to get it right. It's painful. So you tend to do a little bit more due diligence when it's a long-term career decision. And that's what I advise my candidates as well. Hey, and I even tell my candidates, before I make you an offer, I'm going to say, forget the money. Obviously, I know it's got to be competitive, but forget it. Do you really want this job? And they'll all say yes. I say, tell me why. If they can't describe the job in intense detail, describing the work, the people, the team, why it's intrinsically motivated, I won't make the offer to them. But I tell them that I'm going to do that ahead of time. And then my goal as a recruiter say, I'm going to give you all the information to make that career decision. So it's a different kind of a mindset.
Totally agree with you. That point of view, that mindset is so important for the candidate joining a firm and for the hiring manager to understand the person. But you made a really good point. In your job that you left when you were 31, you just didn't like the guy you were working with, right? How important is that relationship between employer and employee, boss and employee? Spend some time on that.
Well, I'm going back to this fellow Chuck Jacob, who made me a manager. He passed away at 38. He was, and I'll call it, but you'll get the sense of it. This guy was great. I love this guy. If he was alive and didn't die at 38, I would not be a recruiter. He said, Lou, I got this idea. And I would have gone with that. Yes, Chuck, let's do it. And my wife, we knew him. He was just a good guy. He was a guy that brought me as a financial analyst to Michigan. So I became a manager of capital budgeting for a big automotive operation when I was 26. And I remember the day before, I was at corporate headquarters of the 35th largest company, financial analyst. And he puts me in his office, says, Lou, I've been made, I think he was controller for a multi-billion-dollar company. And he was only 28 at the time, maybe 29. And he said, I'll make you a financial analyst. I'll go there and I'll pay you this amount of money and I'll do this. And I said, Chuck, I'm not going to Michigan. I'm not going to Michigan to be a senior financial analyst. And that was it. So I go home that night and I said, Lorraine, and we had just been married a couple of years. I said, Lorraine, Chuck just asked me to go to Michigan. Don't worry, we're not going to Michigan. So the next morning, my boss, 2 years or 3 years older than me, puts me in a headlock. Literally. I mean, he physically put my head in the headlock, gives me a noogie. If you don't know what that is, it's rub your head. This is what kids do that. Threw me in the chair. He said, Adler, sit down. I'll make you manager of capital budgeting. I will buy you a house. I'll increase your salary 33%, and I will give you $1,000 for relocation. He said, call your wife up. Lorraine, we're going to Michigan. But he said, I'll get you back in a year and a half. And he did. He was great. He was just a remarkable manager. And I've had a couple of other remarkable managers who I would have died for. It is so critical. I remember I was probably in Michigan, I'm going to say 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember exactly, but I know it was in September. It doesn't, and we had to do a report to the CFO and the group president. And this guy, the group president, eventually became the chairman of a Fortune 20 company. These are big time people. So, and I'm 26 or so, and we had a report to the next, and I knew the guy, but I still had a report the next day, a big capital budgeting meeting, and 11, and I knew I had 8 to 10 hours of work, and it was 11 o'clock in the morning. And Chuck calls me. He says, Lou, I'm over at the University of Michigan hiring MBA students. Get over here right away. There's too many people. I can't interview them this afternoon, so I need you here to interview the candidates. I said, Chuck, I can't interview the candidates. I got this report. We got this meeting with the president and the CFO tomorrow morning. I can't do it. That's 8 o'clock. He said, get your butt over here. We'll figure out how to get it done. There's nothing more important than hiring great people. Nothing. And that word still said, it was almost word for word, a little bit more profanity. Went over there, interviewed the candidates, and I had 8 or 10. He showed me how to interview candidates for a half hour. First interviewing training I ever had. Took the kids out, 7 or 8. We took to dinner in Ann Arbor that night, so that was 6:30. Didn't get back to the office till 10 o'clock at night. We stayed to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning finishing this report up, but it was handwritten. 8 o'clock, I go home, take a shower. I don't think I had it. Made this presentation. The president of the company says, why is this a handwritten report? And Chuck said, we were over at University of Michigan. We are going to make offers to 5 financial analysts. We need them. And in my mind, hiring is more important than getting a type report. And we're here to 3 o'clock in the morning. President looked at it and said, you're absolutely right. Great job. Great lesson. And to me, awesome. He is as remarkable a manager. I've had a couple other people like that who were that good. Maybe not 2 that I can remark, but this other guy was terrible. He was do it my way. This is the way it's going to be. Demeaning, nasty, critical. And I didn't need to take that. So to me, it's vital. You get a great manager, you won't leave.
What's the ingredient of the great managers? What's the one thing that they have? I'm not as good a manager as those guys. I have to say that. I mean, I've tried to emulate what I saw the good ones. I'm adequate as a manager, but it's just remarkable. I think it's total understanding of who you're hiring, total understanding of the work, stretching people and pushing people to become better, breaking barriers, ensuring they can be successful in what they want to do and understand it. And Chuck wasn't this well-organized guy. I mean, he said, I forgot to tell you this, we got to do that. So you'd work 3 hours at night. And it was frustrating, but you didn't care. I said, yeah,
you go with the good and the bad because he was really a developer of people. So I don't know what the secret is. I just know he had it. And he came up with other ideas. In fact, when I was a recruiter, he said, Lou, why don't you become a recruiter? I'm building a consulting firm. Why don't we join forces and become a recruiter under my wing? We kind of created that for a couple of years, but it didn't work that well. But it worked. As I said to Lorraine, if Chuck didn't pass away, he would have had some other odd venture, and I would have sucked into it.
Well, it really is the people who make the difference. They make all the difference. And I think that's a really good point that you've had some really great people that you would follow into uncertainty and then some really bad people. And that's, people want to be inspired. And it sounds like his secret sauce, this guy Chuck, he could give you a noogie.
Yeah.
You had a relationship where he could give you a noogie and throw you in the chair.
Right. Got me to move to Michigan.
All right. Well, on that note, let's take a break, Lou. Coming up in the second part of my conversation with Lou Adler, the CEO and founder of performance-based hiring learning systems. Lou talks about the signs to look for when finding the right candidate for a job.
I just look for evidence of where the person went the extra mile and see if there's a pattern there. And you do that 3 or 4 different jobs, different types of accomplishments, you start seeing this pattern of why the person excelled.
This has been Dare to Care in the Workplace. To connect with Kathleen, go to KathleenQuinnBotaw.com. Kathleen's book, Dare to Care, is available wherever books are sold. Dare to Care in the Workplace is a production of Forbes Books.